Well, Martin has turned the recording on, and we've got our usual suspects. So let me take the time to welcome Rich Ames from the Natick GIS department to our group this morning. Rich, we usually start with a protocol of folks trying to do a very brief introduction of themselves, just so you kind of know who all is in the audience, and then after that we will turn it over to you. I know the bulk of what Rich is going to be talking about is all the exciting stuff with the drones, but at least for my own edification, if not the rest of us, he also promised to tell us what the rest of the department does. It isn't just the drone. So, let's see. Martin, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, I probably have had more experience with the department than most because Rich has been working with us on open space maps since our first open space plan, and working on trail maps ever since we started promoting trails, which is close to 20 years ago. So I'm very eager to hear what you have to say today.
Great, thanks. And of course, I'm the moderator of the group, and I was telling Rich earlier, member of First Congregational Church. We've appreciated all the spectacular photos that Rich has provided of our steeple, including that one from directly above. That is the most amazing view of the steeple I've ever seen. But Sarah?
I'm Sarah Hanna, Doug's wife. I think we have spoken several times, Rich, when I was on the previous incarnation of the Trails Committee that Pat Conaway was involved in. Not sure we ever actually met face to face, but I'm super looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I'll let others speak.
Great. Elaine?
Hi, I'm relatively new to Natick, but my son Josh and his wife Jean have lived here for many years, and it's a sweet community. I miss Westport, but Natick is okay.
Certainly is. Great. Bill?
Hi, Bill Ramage. Keep Natick Beautiful supporter and Beacon Cove trail steward, town meeting member, and looking forward to, and First Congregational Church member. Very interested in seeing what you have to say. So thanks.
Okay, Brian?
Good morning, Rich. I live on Oak Knoll Road. Met you a couple of years ago when you were setting up to do some surveying of the bounds for the annual verification, and really interesting and great work that you're doing. Thank you for coming.
Great. And Ricky?
Oh, Ricky Ball. I have to say now, expatriate.
Oh.
But I'm wearing my I Love Natick t-shirt, so you know where my heart is. And Rich, I only know you by reputation through my husband, who loves the work you do, and J-Ball. And so I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, but you'll forgive us at 9:30. Our new rabbi is coming to visit us, and we have to leave at that point. So again, thank you for coming.
Great. Thanks, Ricky. Carrie?
Hi, good morning, Rich. Carrie Butfield, town meeting member, concerned environmentalist, and treasurer for Paths Keep Natick Beautiful, co-founder of Renewable Natick Sustainability Committee, and we had a great turnout up on Coolidge Hill over the weekend. I don't know how many pounds of glass we vacuumed up there, but it was a great team effort. What do you have to say?
Terrific. Thanks. Cindy?
Cindy Bates. I'm the trail steward for the Tacawambe Trail, and I think we've emailed, if not spoken on the phone, with Marianne and then with Claire. So there's quite a to-do list for the GIS system. And otherwise, I pick up trash at Coolidge Field on a certain irregular basis, and I was involved in the campaign for the CPA, and I moved here in 2019 fall.
Thanks, Cindy.
Great
Carol?
import.
Yeah. Carol?
Good morning, and thanks for coming. Carol Berkowitz. I live on Crescent Street. I've been in Natick over 60 years. I love the town, and I've been a town meeting member, plus other things, but Yes, for coming.
Thanks, Carol. Sally?
Good morning, Rich. I'm really looking forward to your presentation. I'm an enthusiast. I'm a groupie of all these wonderful town caring people. I'm Pat Conaway's sister, which makes me very happy in this world. And but looking forward to hearing what you're going to show us. I think these drone photos are magnificent. So thank you.
Great. Pat?
Good morning, everybody, and Rich. Great to see you here, Rich. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm sort of the Natick Trash and Trails service guy, community nudge. And I'm really delighted by how Doug and Martin have picked up the torch on the Coffee with a Purpose dialogues and conversations, and kept it rolling along.
Great, thanks. And Brinley?
Hi, I am also a big fan of your work. Been in Natick for 20-something years now, town meeting member, pretty active in lots of things. I actually like a lot of what you do. Have used a lot of it. And I have met you several times downtown, like when you do the things for students, and other things. I've met you on the Common a bunch of times, and I'm excited to hear from you today. Thank you for being here.
Great. Oh, and Rick?
Morning. I'm excited to learn about this program because I don't know anything about it at all. I'm new enough to Natick and new enough to town meeting that I haven't gotten on board. So thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone. So, our usual method is we'll let Rich do his presentation, and then we'll use the raise hands function. But Rich, however you want to handle questions, either along the way or at the end, is fine with us. So I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So Rich Ames, I've been working for the town since 2005, but I grew up in Natick. I went to Lil Joe Wilson and then the high school. My parents still live in town up on Bacon Street next to Tilly's. I'm sure some of you remember Al Ames Automotive on Oak Street on Route 9. That was my dad's gas station for 20 plus years. So Natick, even though I live in Framingham now, Natick will always be my hometown, and that's never going to change. So, and I've been very fortunate since 2005 to be working for the town. It's been a dream job for 17 years now. So Natick GIS it's a division within the water department, or within the water division, actually. The DPW is a department. We're a staff of one. It is me. My boss, the water superintendent, Anthony Camo, he's my supervisor. And during the summer times, we'll bring in a couple of interns to help out. Usually they're college-bound seniors, or they're the college students working in GIS, environmental or engineering, and we'll have them do data collection for us during the summer. Natick GIS, we are if it's a map of Natick, we did it. So we serve all departments, all boards, all committees, all vendors, all resident requests, you name it. If it comes across our door, we handle it. Our main job is basically as a data facilitator, to make the data available so people can consume it how they need to. We don't have the bandwidth to go out and collect all the data that people would like trails, for instance, or something like that. We can't go out there and hike all the trails, as fun as that would be. We just don't have the bandwidth to do that. And there's other data collection efforts that we can't do. Primarily, it's all the base layers for the town. So like the roads, the building footprints, the water system, the sewer system, the drains, that kind of base infrastructure. We take care of all the road center lines, that kind of stuff. So that's what we spend most of our time doing. Let's see. Like I said, I know that's kind of Natick GIS in a nutshell. There's a bunch of online resources that I have at the end of the presentation that I can show you, like where the parcel maps are, and we have a Facebook presence and a YouTube presence that people can check out as well. And the presentation I have for you today, it's very drone centric, and it's a program I created probably back in 2016. It's been evolving over the years, and it's really designed for municipalities that want to start their own drone program. So there's a bunch of regulatory stuff in the beginning, which I will kind of move through quickly. If people want to stop and ask questions about it, that's fine. And then we get into a whole bunch of use cases, which is far more interesting. The drone itself is actually the boring part. It's the imagery that's kind of cool. But so if there aren't any questions to start with, I will fire away with the presentation.
Are you going to be talking about how the drone, like how it got started and what the purpose is? Okay. Great.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, I'll have that. The justification is the first part of the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and hope this works.
Ricky has a question.
Oh, sure.
Who had a question?
Ricky.
You're muted, Ricky.
Better eyes than me. I had not seen that.
Space bar.
While she's finding the mute, I just want to welcome Peter to our group this morning.
Hey, Pete.
And Eric.
Hey, sports fans, how you doing? I just wanted to mention, I'm just logging in here. I don't want to just insinuate, but there's an action point from a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about doing some kind of an interview or exploring an interview with the interview process with the high school and Erica Ball. And I think one person was supposed to get back to me on that. I haven't, and I lost her contact. So I wanted to just get that information and follow up on it. Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. Yeah, I'll review our notes from that. That was going to be a town history project, and we were trying to take advantage of some of the folks in the town politics club. I think it was going to be Brindley, but we'll circle back to that.
Thank you. And interested to know about the drone information that we're about to hear. So thank you.
Yeah, we're let's see. Ricky's still on mute, so yeah. Why don't we just continue? And yeah, sorry for that.
Oh wait. Oh, it just flicked off from you for a second. Now it's on.
It's pressed to talk.
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to say that back in 1975, when I reconstituted the data processing committee of the town of Natick, and I never dreamed of drones flying over Natick to collect data that would then be fed into the various databases of the town and work with the Board of Assessors. And this was all a dream fed to me by my husband. And I'm so glad to still be around to see it become a reality. So
yeah, listen, you didn't believe in flying machines at the time.
anyhow, I'm thrilled. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ricky. All right, we'll send it back.
Okay, with that, all right, I will dive in. I'll share the screen here. All right, everyone seeing the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so again, this is a presentation designed for municipalities, but we'll make it work. All right. So we're gonna go over the four main parts. And like I said, and I'll skip through the stuff that's boring. So justification, why are we doing it? What's it gonna cost? What are the requirements? And then the fun stuff, the operations. So justification. So as I mentioned, Natick GIS, we are located within the water department, and the DEP requires us once a month to inspect our water towers. And in the past, this has involved, putting a guy, on a ladder, and climbing up on the roof and making sure that the hatch is secured and that the vents are working. 4 months out of the year, the water tower looks like that. And not really keen for people who want, to go on ladders and getting up on the roof. Or you get some kind of mess of a situation like this where they're doing ladders the wrong way. And ladders, they're the number one cause of injury and occupational safety, and falls are the number one cause of death. So if you can remove this risk class completely from your operation, it's a win. So like I said, if you got to do it for real, you got to get cherry pickers and stuff, and that's expensive. So what we do is we fly it with a drone. So once a month, I will take the drone up and I will take a picture of all the hatches that are on top of the reservoirs, right? And make sure that you can zoom in that they're that they're padlocked and they're secured and they're in good condition. And then the vents at the top, this is the old vent, but that's the new vent. That the new vent is basically free of beer cans and bird cages and birds' nests, and the vent is there and up and running. And that was a win. So the water department happily paid for the first drone. We'll get into cost later on. So since 2016, I've got monthly images of all the hatches and all the vents of the water towers. And we also able to do inspections that we normally couldn't do without hiring a cherry picker. This is at the treatment plant. These are the air strippers. Basically, they blow air through the water column to remove any VOCs. And we just have to make sure that these screens are clear and in good condition. And like I said, normally we couldn't get up there to do that kind of inspection without the drone. All right. So how much is it going to cost? All right. All right. So Natick GIS, now we're at the enterprise level with the drone that we currently have. But back in 2016, when we started, we went with the DJI Phantom. So DJI, they are the Microsoft of the drone world. They have 80 or 90% of the market sewn up. And they just make a really solid product. It is a Chinese company, so we can't do work for the DoD, but I think, we're okay. But that's not gonna be an issue. But back in 2016, we were able to get up and flying for really less than $2,000 with the drone and all the batteries and the extra little bits and pieces that you need. So it's very short money to remove that entire risk class of hazard with getting up on the ladders. We then went on to upgrade the drone to a slightly more industrial drone, which is about $7,000. That was kind of a hot mess. Then finally, back in 2019, we really saw the utility of the drone, and we went all in and we bought an enterprise level drone, which we'll show some pictures of in a little bit. And that all in was about $20,000. And that's the drone we're still flying today for 90% of our flights. The other two drones we still have in the service. We keep them as spares. And there's some special use cases where they come in better. Other costs that you have to deal with is most insurance companies require a rider on top of your insurance. Like for the town of Natick, we just assumed it was going to be covered under our regular general policy, but no, insurance companies were really quick to jump on this, and they said, no, you need a rider. So I had to reach out to my insurance company. And now it's fairly short money for us. I think it's about $1,500 a year for our $4 million worth of liability or something like that in case a drone falls on someone's head. There's flight planning software that comes with the drone. That's usually free. A lot of the mapping that I do is kind of specialized and to work with the GIS. So that's about $1,500 a year to basically create maps from the air photos. The license, it costs about $150 to get the license if you want to fly commercial. And I always encourage people to get creative for funding. So like in our case, working with the enterprise fund, got us in the door. So there's other, grants and stuff. Jillian has been great in getting us grant money to expand the program as well. All right. And then you can go much cheaper than this. There are drones you can get for under $500 that do all the things that our drones do, but just not quite as reliable and not quite as robust. And you can find very cheap drones for under $100, but they are really hard to fly. But they'll take great pictures too if you want to do it. All right. All right. So we have the reason why, we got how much it's going to cost, and now it's legal requirements, because the FAA was very quick to hop on this. And I joke about the FAA kind of intruding here, but they were actually very responsive. This industry essentially came online in 2014, really. It's when it really took off. And by 2016, they had a framework in place to make it so it wasn't just complete chaos in the sky, which it would have been. So basically, there's 4 reasons to fly, right? You're flying for fun, you're flying for compensation, you're flying as a public operator, you're an educational, right? And there's a brand new rule coming online that all drones, regardless of why you're flying, must have remote ID by September of next year. So there's going to be a module.
Rich, I just wanted to interrupt to show you my
Sure.
drone here.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Yep. I bet you that's a pain to fly too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My drones are very easy to fly because they have the technology built in. Actually, usually the less I do, the more likely success of the flight. So, all right. So anyway, so by September of next year, there's going to be a requirement that all drones have a remote ID. That means the drones are going to be broadcasting the information of who the pilot is, where the pilot is. And anyways, all right, and we'll go through these 4 use cases real quick. Yeah. All right. So again, I'm not going to read all these, but even if you're flying for recreational, so no compensation whatsoever, you still have to register your drone. You still have to take a free test. And then there's going to be a, that remote ID requirement. So you just can't grab the drone and go fly. As long as the weight limits are, if it's over half a pound, essentially you need to comply with these rules. And a bunch of other just common sense stuff. All right. So commercial. So this is any commercial operation, anytime you receive compensation. So if you're flying your friend's wedding and they're giving you a dinner, that's considered compensation. And it's a commercial application. And you're supposed to have a certification from the FAA, which is called Part 107. And it's a 60-question test that you have to take. And then renew it every 2 years. And you get an actual, pilot's license from the FAA saying that you're a remote drone pilot. And there's a whole bunch of rules in that. Okay, public operator. This is what a lot of communities do. It's a bit onerous at first because all the heavy lifting's in the beginning. But what this does is this certifies basically a column of airspace over your area. So that could be a town, it could be a college, it could be a military base, it could be a DPW, whatever your area of operation is. And you work with the FAA to say, this is our column of airspace. We're going to self-certify our own pilots. And you work through the program and you create your own FAA rules, essentially in conjunction with the FAA. And so then in this case, you could have one pilot on stand, and then I could train a bunch of firefighters and police and stuff like that. This is probably the way to go for a town-wide operation, and a lot of communities do this. With me, I'm the only pilot, so there hasn't been any lift for this yet. But it's pretty onerous because you've got to work with town council. You have to prove that you're a town, and you got to. It's a bunch of work in the beginning. But a lot of police and fires do this. And then educational. So if you're a certified educational institution, you can have a drone training program where there's one pilot, and when you're teaching, all the students are considered recreational under that. So, all right. Let's see, UTM. This is going to be the driving force in the drone industry going forward. So this is the big companies like a UPS, Amazon, you name it, eBay, even, all the delivery agencies, because they're going to be throwing, billions of dollars at the drone industry and lobbying the FAA to get basically airspace approval to do remote drone delivery of packages and pizzas and medicine, whatever. That's going to be the driving force. And the whole industry is basically, it's called, UAS traffic management. So this is kind of like the asset management of the drone universe. And it's basically designed to create the framework for a safe commercial operation, similar to think of, the rules that govern, trains and trucks and boats and stuff like that. It's going to be something similar, for drone delivery. And within, who knows what time frame, 10 years, 20 years, I would assume you're going to see some sort of regular, drone delivery operations. They're already in beta tests. That last mile of operation is where the big cost savings is going to be. So, okay. So if you happen to have a drone program that's near an airport, you still can get approval. There's this thing called Lance, which basically it's an app on your phone, and you can basically dial in and say, I'm going to fly here near this airport below a certain altitude, and you can get approval for a certain period of time. So this is a private public operation between the FAA and a bunch of private companies. So even airports, even programs close to airports can still have some functionality. Okay, I won't go too much into this because this is all, I'll tell you the pilot knowledge test, because again, it's 60 hours and you have to get a 70 on it. There's nothing on the drone pilot test about flying the drone, right? Because the drone kind of flies themselves. Everything in here is about risk management and understanding airspaces and understanding restrictions and understanding, crew risk management and crew allocations. They just want to make sure that these people know what they're getting into when they put their drone up, next to an airport, and they'll understand, what the ramifications are going to be. But all right. So that's the shotgun blast of how to start your own drone operation. Any questions on that before I get into the fun stuff?
What does AGL mean on the elevation?
So it's above ground level. So there's two
Ground
types
level.
of
Okay,
elevation
I
in the
guess that.
aviation world. There's mean sea level, right? So that's just a height above the sea level. And then AGL is above ground, which is more important for drone operations because that's the guiding force.
Great. And Cindy had her hand up. Cindy, you're on mute at the moment.
UAS.
Unmanned aerial system.
Thank you.
All right. And Brinley.
It's probably, I think it's now officially uncrewed aerial system, I think. In all the early documentation, it's unmanned. So it's.
And Brinley and Pat as well. Brinley?
My question is possibly another whole entire conversation, but I have always been interested in understanding how, as we move forward into this whole drone delivery, does it mean that there's going to be like a computer air traffic controller, or I can just envision drones running into each other and sci-fi movies, horror movies of
yeah, it's gonna be
in the air.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I really don't know what it's gonna look like, but it's gonna be something like that. I mean, right now all the systems, and the only way it works really is all the systems are automated. So the drones have collision avoiding devices, on them, so that I get sensors on the forward and the back, and the left and the right. And all the authorizations that I get even now, it's all automated. So whatever the final solution is going to be, in order for it to be cost effective, it's going to have to be automated. So, which is going to be a whole new host of issues. I mean, this remote operation, it's not just drones. Eventually, let's talk about making trucks automated, and even, cargo ships and stuff, where that they spend, you take a cargo ship out 10 miles and then the crew gets off and then the ship just goes. And then 10 miles out from the port, a crew hops on and they bring the thing into port. So, like I said, transportation automation is going to be huge over the next 20 something years.
And Pat, and also Sarah. Pat.
Rich, just a couple of questions. How did you get your training, and do they offer training, like at adult school or anything for drone piloting and so forth?
Yeah, there's a ton of resources. So I should have mentioned this first. This industry is essentially still brand new. So there's a lot of fly-by-night operations out there. So buyer beware. Especially when the thing first launched in 2016, every website in the world was offering, get your Part 107 license here online for free, kind of thing. But anyways, where I started, well, I'm a little bit different because in my prior life, before I came to the town, I actually did flight instruction when I was a teenager. So I had about about 50 hours or so in a Cessna 152. So I had a fair amount of knowledge kind of already stuffed into my head. And a lot of that came in very handy for this test. But you can start online at the FAA, UAS website. They've got a great starting point for learning everything you need to know about getting your certification for Part 107. They got, they have a practice test there and stuff. And with work, you could do it on your own at no cost. There's enough free online resources out there. But there's also a ton of programs out there that you can pay, and there'll be drone certification courses that will either guarantee or whatever that you'll pass the 107 test. To a point, there's a community college out in New York, Mohawk Valley Community College. They have an an associate's degree in drone pilot. And so, part of their curriculum is you get your drone license, and they've got an unbelievable program for a small little community college. I was at a conference I was just at. Amazing. So it's like I said, the new industry, there's stuff evolving all the time. Even some of the rules I'm talking about now may even be out of date. So
yeah. Ricky, let's jump to you because I know you're going to have to leave.
Yeah, I was just interested in, at this point in time, are there smaller communities that don't have our capacity that we can share, that would buy services from us? The way we share, I think, veteran service officers, we share we have other services that we cooperate with other smaller towns.
On an ad hoc basis, I mean, in the spirit of mutual aid, I will fly projects in other towns, usually as a demonstration of the technology. But we have a project right now we're doing for an MVP grant. We're going to be flying with Hudson, Framingham, and Natick wetland sites. Oh, not wetland sites. What is it? It's basically urban sites that could benefit from reforestation. We're going to be using the drone to do some kind of analysis of that.
Excellent application.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great.
Because I understand we need 1 trillion new trees planted in order to absorb what was lost by deforestation. So wonderful.
Wow. Sarah, did you have a question?
Oh, it's not a question. This just sort of reinforcing this idea of this technology being so new. Our middle son graduated from Natick High in 2014 or 2011, excuse me, and went to WPI. And I remember at the end of his freshman year, one of his buddies who was in the engineering department came with this drone. And it was like, this is something out of a sci-fi movie. And it was it was cutting edge technology at the time. Of course, being college students, they used the drone to take an apple, fly it over the building and drop it in the freshman courtyard, hoping to beam somebody on the head. But it was just, I just remember thinking this thing looked like this alien thing, and it really wasn't that long ago. So it's amazing to see all the stuff that we're doing with them.
Yeah. Well, we've already peppered you with questions, but let's move on.
That's good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So operations. There we go. So, like I mentioned, like the drone, once you get into the prosumer level, they're very easy to fly. They have a GPS unit in them, like your car, and they also have what's called an inertial measurement unit, an IMU, which basically controls the attitude of the drone. So it knows when it's leaning, it knows when it's tilting and going forward and stuff like that. So when you let go of the controls, the drone just stays there. So it compensates for any wind, and it'll just hover in place, which is nice. Most drones at this level have about 25-minute flight time. There are some heavy duty ones that you can get longer flight times, 45 minutes, an hour plus. It takes about an hour or so to charge up the batteries. The drone is very smart. It has a strong sense of self-preservation. At 30%, the alarm will start chirping at you saying, hey, the battery's getting low. At 10%, it says, forget you, I'm coming back home. And it'll return back to the base where it took off from. if I were to turn my controller off and throw it into a ditch, the drone would come back and land from where it took off from. And there's parameters that you can set up in there. So it returns at a safe altitude, and the drone has its own sensors and stuff like that. So you have to work fairly hard to crash the drone, which I have done. The drones can handle winds up to about 25 miles an hour. Some of the bigger ones can take more. Like I said, most drones aren't rainproof. The one we have can take a light rain, not a deluge. You wouldn't want to fly in a deluge anyways, because there's nothing to see. But it's important to know the system and test the limits of the system, and actually get some control time flying it so you can understand how it responds. But in normal operations, again, very easy to fly. So we have 3 drones in our system. And because I'm a wannabe fighter pilot, I created little squadron patches for each one, just because I could. So this is our first one, which I stole from the 1st Marine Division, Swift Silent SUAS. And this is a great drone. We still have it. It's fantastic, very easy to use. It looks like an Apple product. So it's a nice, friendly drone. We moved on. We bought this one in 2018. Better sensors. So I have 3 different sensors that I can hang off this thing, which is a camera, basically a telephoto camera, and then this last one is a thermal sensor. So it sees heat, which we'll talk about in a second. And this is the patch we came up for that one. And then our third one, which was from Empire Approved.
What?
No, that's not it. But I'm not sure which is more ominous looking. When I first took this out of the box, I was very intimidated. This is the Matrice 210. You can hang 2 different sensors off of it. There's actually a 3rd sensor you can put on the top. It weighs about 13 pounds, all up weight. Very noisy, very menacing in the sky, but it's a great platform. I love this drone for its reliability. Briefly talk about other drones. So you get tethered drones. So basically you can, you put it at the end of a wire, and data and power basically go up the tether. So you can stay up and fly all day. And these things tend to be waterproof. So you can put them up in a rainstorm. Again, not that there's anything to see. Back in 2017, I think it was, the marathon, that was a rain out. This was a company from New Hampshire came down and offered these services for us, and they flew a drone all day in the rain at Natick and at Hopkins, basically hovering at 400 feet, doing observation of the field. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of these for traffic use. I would think that'd be so much cheaper than putting a helicopter up. Just tether one on the Southeast Expressway and leave it there all day, but it hasn't happened yet. Maybe the business model isn't there. And then there's fixed wing. So these are more in open rural areas where you can fly, gigantic distances, 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres plus, big, real plane size missions with these drones. All right. So a lot of the work I do, other than inspections, is mapping and doing updates. So this is Route 27 in Natick by the Mass Pike. This is where the new nursery school or daycare center rather opened up. And so this is the kind of the before action. Oops, sorry. And then that's the after, right? So the new imagery fits right in seamlessly with the old data. So we can bring this in and we can do all the updates. And this took, maybe 30 minutes to fly, not even. And then there's a couple hours to process the data. And then again, this is construction. This is Moderna at this is the 27 and the rail trail where the paperboard site used to be. Again, during and then after. Again, use it for updating all the footprints of the edge of pavement and the parking lot and the structures. And again, this is just showing the detail that's available in the camera. This is Hunter Hill or Hunter Lane, Hunter's Hill Lane, which I forget which one it is, but the new one off of South Main Street. And again, this is like during construction, and you can see the detail down to utility marks in the sidewalk, and you can easily see, sewer manholes and other infrastructure, that a fire hydrant down here in the cul-de-sac. And again, the real power of the drone is how fast, from conception to finished product, you can have, data updated. So this was when Exponent, across from the water treatment plant on Route 9, the rail trail is just to the north of this, was under construction. So I went out and flew this. It was like literally 2 minutes, 2 shots, bring it back into the base. And, a year before this building is done, we're going to have that footprint, in our system, because we're able to fly it, so rapidly. And then we do special events. So this is 20, I think this is 2018, or it could be 2016. I'm not sure. Boston Marathon. And this is like a funny and interesting study. So this is at peak crowd, right? When the peak wave of runners is going through there. So if you look down towards the bottom of the screen, it doesn't look that dense, right? But at street level, that's wall to wall people. And if you look up the street, look west, you can see it's just like a solid wall of people, but it's the same amount. It all has to do with perspective. So if you think of when they do those aerial photos of the inauguration speeches, they're trying to count people and show, oh, look how big the crowd is. Everything has to do with perspective, right? It's where you point the camera and how you do it. So these are all the same number of people wherever you look. It looks very differently. So. And then we do, again, the fall color tours has been very popular since 2016. So we've only been expanding that. And we also do a spring flight too, and just going around, just capturing just all the great stuff that's in Natick. And then we highlight, projects in town. And so, I want to use the drone, for positive things. We don't use it for assessing. We don't use it to spy on people for their decks or to see where no pools are and stuff like that. We have assessors, and and they do a fine job. They don't need any help from me. We don't use it for zoning infractions, because one, it's illegal. But again, it's not what I want to use the drone for. I don't want the drone to be spying on people. I want to show off Natick. So this is, the project with Jillian, and the school's got a grant for some solar panels. And here I am, I get to fly the drone. Says, here's what your taxpayers at work here. These are the things we're doing. And the kids wrote Natick Loves Solar. And then we fly the athletic fields for art and LFNR. And we can, look at turf stress. And this is one of the projects that we fly. So this is about, just again, about 200 images and about 2.5 miles of linear force main that was put in. So there's a new sewer force main put in. This is Bradford Road, the Bradford Road sewer station up in Weathersfield. And so this is, again, about an image of 200 images all stitched together. But if you zoom into the full resolution, you can see right after construction where the trenches are and where the pipe went in the ground. So immediately when the project is done, we can fly this, and I can update, the GIS to where the sewer system is based on this imagery. And we'll maybe a year or two, or maybe never, before we get the as-built from the contractor. And then whenever we do, we can compare that as-built to this image and say, hey, no, we know where the pipe is because we flew the trench, because this road's already been paved by now. And this is gone. So it kind of captures that moment in time and a true ground truth of where things are.
Brindley, did you want to jump in with a question? Or?
Sure. It went back a little bit, but I was just curious I love the idea of the drone and the traffic as opposed to the helicopters. I think that was pretty awesome idea, but I'm wondering if there's a concern or an issue of theft or, birds messing with it, or, I can just imagine all kinds of things that might impede the ability to actually use it for that type of situation. Are there thoughts about that?
It's brand new. All that stuff would have to get worked out. What kind of, would it be, would it be from a permanent site, like a cell tower, and you fly it off the top of a cell tower or something like that, or from a building in town, or would it be a mobile van that just kind of goes and sets up? all day, and so there's a person sitting there, but it's still got to be cheaper than a helicopter and a helicopter pilot. But I don't know. But if you've got a business plan for it, there's an availability there.
Yeah. And since I have you, so I'm assuming with all of this, that there's a grid line distance measuring, kind of like when you go to the doctors and they put their little arrows up and say that's what this distance is and all of that kind of thing on scans. Is that the type of
Yes.
software that comes with this? Do you have to do special learning with that? Is that separate? or-
Yes. So there is some special software. With the software we use is let me back up one, is called Drone to Map. And again, it's an Esri product, which they're kind of like the Microsoft of the GIS world. And what that enables us to do is like a flight like this. So this is 196 separate images that the drone captured. And then what I'll do is I'll go along this route and I'll set out some ground control points. And it's just basically I paint some marks in the sidewalk with paint, and then I GPS them with our GPS equipment. And then I bring that all back into the office and basically say in each image, hey, this point here is at this coordinate, this point here is at that coordinate. And the computer just jams it all together, right? And does all the edge matching. And so when this product is done, this is in our real world coordinate system, and it can bring right into any GIS system. So that's the utility of it. So it's not just an image, it's a map, right? And you can also see, not in this example. Let me find a better, I'll find a better example. Hold on. This is actually a raw image. In the final image, it removes all the release displacement and distortions that come from aerial photos. So what you're getting is a straight down, a true ortho. You're not going to see the sides of any buildings. You're going to see the true roof print in all the orthos, which is amazing. So it just makes mapping a lot easier. I'll see if I can have an example of a real shot. Because in this one here, you can see the sides of the building here. In the final product, that's all removed, and the building is corrected to an ortho. So you're seeing a true straight down when it merges all the images together. Oh, here we go. This is part of an ortho here. So again, you can see, like I said, you're not seeing the sides of any buildings in this image, right? You're getting a straight down shot of this canopy, straight down shot of this building, straight down shot of everything. So this is a 135, a similar project. This kind of demonstrates what it does with cars and moving objects that are in the image. And then it tends to ghost them out. So you can see this truck appears, 5 different times, but it's slightly ghosted up because the software knows that it's the same thing and it's moving. So it fades it a little bit. Excuse me. But you're getting the important information of, where the water main is along the south, and then all the connections that go to the building, which are these vertical lines here with the service connections.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just going back to the pictures that you had of new development, like 2 years before they even finished the building, you know
Yes.
exactly where the footprint is. Does the drone know how to get exactly over the middle of that building so it's straight down?
Yeah, no. So that happens post-processing. So
It does.
that image is probably that was a fairly small site. So that was maybe 4, maybe 8 images total. And the software does all that comparison, and it merges the images together, and it actually makes a 3-dimensional point cloud of the site, which is, again, totally blows my mind. So the software has a 3D model of what you're imaging, and then it corrects all the building leans.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. So we talked about this already. Here's a fun project we did. So this is the mile swim that they used to be run at Natick. I don't know if that's going to come back or not since what's his name retired. His name's escaping me. But what we did is we used the drone and we programmed this coordinates in of all the turns on the course, and we flew the drone out there and we would just hover it. And then the guys in the boat, or the gals in the boat in this case, they would go out there and fly to the drone and then drop the buoy. So this is my intern, Nicole, here in the front of the boat, and a couple of the kids from Park and Recs. And she's just kind of basically, they hover right, they go right to where the drone is, and then they drop the buoy in the water, and then I fly the drone off to the next one. So it makes it a much more, I
That's
guarantee
cool.
it's like the most accurate mile swim, in Massachusetts.
That's
Dan
actually
Keith,
wicked
that's his,
cool.
yeah, Dan
Yeah.
Keith, that's his name. Sorry. Couldn't remember his name for the life of me. But we had like the sandbar is a big deal. So we were able to see that in the imagery and basically find a starting point that would get us around that sandbar. So the kids weren't walking in the mile swim. All right. And then this drone. So this drone has been a bit of a disaster for us because it's very unreliable and it's not very well made, but it does have a thermal sensor. And this drone came in to its own at the fire. I'll skip over this stuff. Oh, actually, well, hold on. Let me go back. Sorry. So the thermal sensor, but it's a very small thermal sensor. When you think of, like your TV, a 4K TV, so it's an image that's like, 3,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels. This image is teeny tiny. This is like 200 pixels by 100 pixels. So it's very small. So this is a parking lot up in Salem when I was doing a class up there. And this is the full size resolution of the regular camera. And that's the same scene in thermal. So it's a teeny tiny little footprint. So that's the same scene. You can see the black spot there is the snow. So it's nice and cool. The red hot spots there are the car that's running. So very small spatially. So it's very hard to see detail, but it's very sensitive to temperature. I mean, it's picking up the difference between wet pavement and dry pavement. It's picking up the difference between things that are white and things that are black. So it's temperature wise, it's very sensitive, but spatially, it's kind of hard. So, I had, fantasies of rescuing children lost out in wetlands or something like that, but it's, you'd have to fly right over the person in order to see anything. So, but the drone.
Can I ask
Sorry,
a
go
quick
ahead.
question about that? Is that
Yep.
sensor upgradable? Is that perhaps because the memory to make it bigger, to make the picture bigger is just too large or bulky, or does it have something to do with size? Is that an upgradable thing?
It's this one. It's not well, I could buy another sensor, but this one itself is not upgradable. So that was about $2,000, and the police department paid for that to get a real, infrared sensor that's actually, have some kind of functionality. You're looking at closer to $10,000 even now, maybe $7,000 or $8,000 to get a decent thermal camera. Which maybe we'll get in the next one. We'll see.
Richard, I have a question. Thank you. This is an excellent presentation. You mentioned earlier that certain products made in other countries are not quite as good, and I don't know if you're comparing them to U.S. products. If at all possible, is it financially feasible to buy U.S. products, and do they offer a better service, and overall are they made better?
So yeah. Yes, but it's difficult. Actually, the Chinese products are actually far superior to what's being made in the United States right now, as far as products that are available and the refinement and the ease of use. The DJI stuff is a generation ahead of, or maybe even two, of anything that it's available in the United States. The issue with the Chinese stuff is the concerns about the data going back to China and the Chinese Communist Party, spying on our water hatches for whatever reason. There are some American companies that are going to cost more, and they'll probably be very niche in their capabilities. So they'll do one thing very well and be kind of an engineered solution. But for an all-around drone that you're going to use for multiple things, the Chinese stuff is really the only way to go for now. And that's just an infrastructure. I mean, everything we buy is made in China. So all those supply chain issues that affect every other product we buy, it's the same deal with drones. I would love to buy an American drone, but it's just not available right now.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So yeah, the thermal drone. So I'm thinking this thing is a bust until we had the fire back in 2019 at Clark's at Walcott Block. So this was, as you know, the biggest fire since 1874 in town. Multi-town effort. 16 different communities came in, and this little thermal drone that I thought was a piece of junk actually ended up being very useful and being very helpful. So for the entire operation, I was parked right next to the fire chief, Deputy Dow, and we were flying the thermal drone over the fire site. And so you can see in the main image here is what it looks like in true color, right? Right. And then up in the upper left is what it looks like in the thermal. Right. So you can see these hot spots, labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the active fire that's burning, down below the smoke or underneath the roof. Because the big trouble with this fire is the entire structure was covered with a rubber membrane, and they couldn't penetrate the roof, with the fire hoses. So now I don't want to oversell this. This wasn't like I was directing the chief to say, hey, you need to spray water here, kind of thing. It's more kind of a big picture about, where are we in terms of resources? Am I okay to start sending crews home, or is this thing still, an active fire kind of thing? So more big picture service. So again, and this is later on when they're tearing the building down, and you can see on the left, the main image, they're still pouring water into it, but there's no active smoke or fire. But in the thermal, you can see up here, there's a hot spot there, right? And a hot spot there, and a hot spot here, where heat is coming out of in spot 4. That's just heat coming out of the side of the building.
Wow.
Says,
Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, Rich, just go back quickly to the data security issue.
Sure.
How do you protect against Chinese data vacuuming from the work you're doing?
Well, all the data that I'm collecting, it's all public records anyways. I mean, there's nothing that I'm flying that's considered sensitive. I mean, there's nothing that I'm taking a picture of that any person flying over the town of Natick can't already see on their way to LaGuardia. So, and beyond that, I mean, the most, I can't even imagine. I mean, all my data is kept local. I don't do any kind of processing up in the cloud. So all the data, it stays on my, hard drive on the drone, and then it gets, the images get downloaded straight to our hard drive. The only thing China would get would be flight path and where I flew. But I really don't care if they have that information.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Enough said. Enough said.
But if they want it, I know.
Rich,
there are
one other question I was going to ask about the fire was, back when all of the smoke was being generated, was there an issue about how close the drone could be to all of that? And
yeah, well, I was above the firefighters, so I figured if I was farther away than them, if the firefighters were safe, I figured I'd be safe too. I didn't descend below the aerials at any time. So I was probably maybe 50 feet above the tallest aerial at this point. So I figured if they're not melting, I should be okay. But to your point, we didn't know. I had no idea if the smoke was going to affect it, or if I was going to get hit by spray from the water. No idea. We were kind of flying by the seat of our pants there. This was a brand new, application. All right. And then we'll kind of go on some examples of the current drone. In this slides, we're going to highlight. So this has a regular camera, to do mapping, but it also has an inspection camera, which has a 30x optical zoom, which again, the police department paid for, which was nice of them. So this is Natick days in 2018 or 19, I forget which. So right at this point, I'm at 400 feet above the town, looking straight down, with the 30x zoom optical camera at 1x zoom. And then, so now I've tilted up, to the horizontal. And so now we're looking east towards Boston. So you can see Boston there and the towers on the skyline. And then we'll start zooming in. So this is 3x optical zoom, and then 9x optical zoom, and then 30x optical zoom. So if you wanted to inspect the towers and need them, you could do it. So you can only imagine, what kind of resolution you could get if I was, looking at a house per se, or perhaps someone walking across a field. So, and then again, that's the Tobin Bridge. You can see pieces of Everett. Again, this is from Natick, 16 miles away. But we also do the drone for fun stuff too. Again, it's very high resolution. And we fly this, to update individual houses. So on any given day, I could probably fly 10 to 15 houses with the drone and bring all that back in and process it. And by the next day, I can be updating the footprints of the house, of their patio, of their sidewalk, of the driveway, of the shed out back, any new road work, edge of pavement out in the street. So again, very rapid. I can fly, this spring, I think I flew 56 houses this spring to update. So this is new construction. This are houses that have been torn down, and the new construction that comes in. And so we're able to keep, again, this is for the assessors, not directly anyways. They use it eventually, but the primary goal is for the as-builts. So when our engineering crews are creating the as-builts, they have an accurate footprint that they're doing ties off of to our infrastructure, and basically an accurate base map for the town. Eventually these show up on our map geo site. So it shows up as the base map that the assessors use. But again, they're not using this for assessment purposes.
So is that only for town owned stuff, or like if I was to get a permit to build a new house, would this process be used to make sure that the house that I built was built according to the drawings and the permits?
No, not currently. Well, the way I do it is I get a list from engineering once they've done their final inspections, and I'll go out and basically fly all the sites that they say, here, a new house went here, a new addition went on here. And again, it's just for the base map. I mean, they certainly could use it. I mean, because the data are accurate enough. I mean, these pixels, when you think of a good air photo, it's like a 1 foot pixel, maybe, right? This is like 2 centimeter pixels. Each pixel on the ground represents 2 centimeters on the ground. So it's very high resolution, and the accuracy is well within our 40 scale. So,
wow, I see both Rick and Martin have their hands up too. Rick?
Yeah, Rich, I'm just curious, is there any commercial use to sell these images, like to real estate sites, Zillow and places like that? Or do they have their own? How do they get their images? I guess my question.
Yeah, most of them have their own stuff now, and I'm sure a lot of them are flying illegally because they popped up awfully fast. But who am I to judge? But yeah, a lot of realtors already have their own little drones, and there's small little DJI Mavic 3s, which are handheld, and they can go up and get a quick picture real fast and do that. A lot of the commercial use for drones is in construction now using LiDAR. So instead of having a survey crew, survey the entire site, they'll put a drone up, with a LiDAR, and they'll basically do a laser scan of the entire construction site, and they'll have their built up as built, in a point cloud.
Martin?
Yeah, so I was kind of interested in how close the alignment was between the images of the houses and the driveways and so forth and the property lines, because when we look at open space on the online GIS that is available to the public, very often there's encroachment. We see driveways and sometimes even sheds that are over the property line and that are on public property. And I don't know we've never really figured legally what we can do about it, but we were just wondering how accurate that encroachment is in terms of the alignment of those layers.
All right, so there's 2 issues there. As far as the built environment, this imagery is incredibly accurate. So Natick, the base map for Natick is 1 to 40 scale. So 1 inch on the map equals 40 feet in the real world. And that national map accuracy standard is basically I think it's 68%, or is it, I'm sorry, 95% of any spot is going to be within 1.5 feet of its true location. That's kind of the base level for Natick accuracy for the built environment. So this drone imagery comes in at sub-foot accuracy, so it more than matches that. Parcels are a whole different thing. A parcel map is is not a legal binding definition of a property boundary. It's only there for assessing purposes to show the ownership of a particular piece of real estate. There is no spatial accuracy statement for parcels. And the only person that can do a boundary survey is a licensed surveyor. So that's the only way to know for sure, is to have a licensed surveyor, put their stamp on a document. Now, once I have that information, I can display it in here and it will line up exactly, to the real world. But the parcel lines themselves, they cannot be used for precise boundary definition.
Right.
Could I just ask a follow-on question to that?
Sure.
So the base map for the parcels, was that created from the original, the drawings that the assessors kept over time, and then somebody digitized those maps by hand by tracing?
Well, the parcel lines, yes. For the built environment, that was done. Our base map is from 2001, where they flew the entire town, in a traditional aerial format. So again, anything that's built environment, it's based off of the real world. The parcels, again, that's like I said, it's been an iteration since the very first hand-drawn ones back in the 40s or who knows.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And like I said, and as we go forward in time and lot splits come in and I do the additions into the parcel map, I use real world coordinates. So the map is slowly but surely getting more accurate over time as I fit in, new subdivisions, but it'll never be a legal document for a boundary determination.
So a question and an observation, when we bought our house, we were, as you say, given a parcel map or a little plan that we got, and we really wanted to put an addition on our house, but the plan showed there was no way was there any room to put it. And it was it was a wooded area next to us. You couldn't find the boundary markers and so forth. Turned out the plan we had given had our house 10 feet off, which on a third of an acre lot is a pretty big issue. And it turned out we did have to get a variance, but there was plenty of room to put the addition there. And we did have to get it surveyed.
Correct.
So I'm presuming that, that issue now has all been cleaned up in the town system because this happened in the 90s. But the question I had was, how does vegetation cover affect what your drone is doing? Just thinking about where we live, there's a ton of trees. Do you have to wait for some of this stuff till the leaves are off the trees, or do you have imaging that can see through all that vegetation?
Yeah, so the best flying is in the spring, and actually right now there's a nice little window of opportunity right now. Although the sun angle is a little off because the shadows are so long, but the sweet spot is snow out, leaf off. So from February, if you can get the snow to melt, so say beginning of March until mid-May or so is when I try to fly as much as possible when there's no canopy, and then again in the late fall after all the leaves have dropped. And again, it depends on the site. If there's no trees in the site, then it's no big deal. But if it's most of us were, is a tree canopy involved. So
yeah, no, we have a ton of giant trees, and which is why the solar companies tell us to go away when we try to get solar on our roof.
Right. Yeah, and going back to your first point, if you ask any surveyor what GIS stands for, they'll say get it surveyed. Which it's good advice. If you're looking to spend several $100,000 on an addition or whatever, spend the $2,000 and get your lot surveyed. It's cheap insurance to make sure you're not wasting your time. So,
well, a further point on that, we had when we bought the property, our realtor, who it turned out was the first house she had ever sold, just told us, oh, your back corner is this old telephone pole out in the woods, because there used to be an old house out back. No, it wasn't our back corner at all. So it really did need to get surveyed. So
okay, let's see what we got left. Oh, okay, and another kind of more interesting development. You all know about the brush fire on August 16th at Broadmoor. So we went out the next day and we flew the site for the fire department, basically this do determination of how big the fire was. And I got a map coming up next. But the Audubon Society liked it so much, they said, hey, can you come back and kind of fly monthly for us and keep track of this? So it was a fun little process because Audubon has a strict no drone policy. So I had like, even though they were asking me, I had to go through this whole rigmarole of justifying why I wanted to fly the drone there. It's like, well, you want me to fly the drone there, but whatever. It was a fun process. Audubon has a very kind of strict hierarchy of who's in charge and who says what. So this is like the day after the fire. The crews were actually still out there, knocking out hot spots when we were flying. So again, about 5.25 acres. This way I had my intern with me, and she was out there, GPSing some control points for me. And so here it is a month later. So compare, right? And then this yellow line is the burned area. Now you can see the logo has changed from, Natick Fire to Broadmoor to the Mass Audubon. And you can see how the area is still, starting to come back.
Wow.
And again, in October, it's really coming on strong. And then even in November, and you can see, over here on the western edge, the burned area is recovering faster, right, or doing better vegetation wise than the area that wasn't burned. So it's been a fun project. I got to work with their scientist Flavio. I forget his last name, but he was. I got to fly with him one day, and he was a fascinating guy to work with. But this has been a fun project, a fun positive, win for the drone.
Does your software allow you to calculate that acreage based on that very complex polygon there?
Correct. Yep. I just trace it. It's basically a digit, heads up digitized, and it figures out the area for me.
And do you get money from Audubon for that?
No, no, not at all. Just exposure. Again, there's our fleet of drones with our FAA registrations, and that's our DPW. That's from last month. I took that shot, and then we have some online resources that you can dive into. So we have a Facebook page where most of the images end up. We have a group, Natick Geographic, if you want to nerd out and talk maps. The YouTube channel, and all the videos are gorgeous. Because they're all 4K, 60 frames per second. They're just gorgeous. This is our parcel viewer, which is the official tax map of the town now. We don't actually print a paper map anymore. So if you go to the Map Geo site, that is the gospel. And we have a new cloud-based GIS, which is a bit more heavy duty for people who are looking to do mapping, create their own maps. This for applications for town staff and stuff like that. So,
Rich, could you forward that to so all of us could have that in our possession?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, and I'll leave it up while we do questions. So.
Yeah. If you leave it up, and then if there's a chance of just sending me a copy of or a link to the presentation or something, then I
sure.
can include these. Rick, I know you had a question.
No, it's just about, by the way, you have a very cool job.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I hope you have it for another 17 years. I'd love to hear what you see coming in at some point, if you want to sort of imagine what you'll be doing with this in 17 years and 2040.
Oh, boy. Wow. Boy, that's a good question. With the drone, I just see things getting more automated, so I can see in the future, because right now, like creating a mapping project, while still very fast, it could be faster. So right now I fly it, I do the ground control, I come back to the office and I process it. I could see within a short number of years where you just fly it and it does it on the fly, and you get like a live map of what you're doing, and that automatically gets put to the cloud someplace, and it's instantaneous. I could see that happening.
So that means your job gets better and better.
Yes.
Easier. Take out
although, like I said, I'm a map nerd, so I love the part of doing the ground control, of pouring over the air photo and scanning through it and seeing all the detail. That's actually the part I enjoy the most. The flying is, honestly, it's boring because the drone is doing everything. You program the route and it just flies and it comes back and lands. So you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs. Playing with manipulating the images is the part that I really enjoy. But GIS wise, it's more, everything's just going to be faster and cloud based. When the big change was in 2005, when the smartphones came out, and the ability to put the map in your hand, and now you're in the map, right? That's the biggest revolution that's happened in GIS since the beginning of GIS, honestly. And that was a big game changer for our crews, because we previously been trying to put maps into their hands through either giving them a laptop or giving them a tablet or something like that, and they wouldn't touch it. But once they could do it on their own phone, it was okay, because they know how to use their phone. So now every crew member has the ability to go on their phone and get the as-built of the water, the sewer, the drain system, and see it themselves. So, but there's going to be just more of that.
So I see multiple hands up, but I'm going to jump in with moderator privilege first and make one observation and ask one question. Observation, you also said, Rich, earlier that you foresee package delivery becoming more of a real thing. And you mentioned that your biggest drone is already quite noisy. This group had a session several weeks back or a couple of months back about how annoyed we are with all of the gas lawn care equipment. I cringe when I think of a network of drones big enough to deliver packages flying all over the neighborhood. That's the observation. The question I had for you, though, was the inspection camera with the police. Have you been called on to assist in any missing persons cases at all? Where we're trying to, sometimes you see helicopters hovering over the neighborhood, or the town citizen alert goes out to say be on the lookout for an elder person who's wandered off.
Yes. And I should say I can neither confirm nor deny, but yes, I have been called in on a few things. We've done some accident reconstruction stuff for the police department. Like a major accident that involves a town vehicle, they'll have me fly the site. Like when the fire truck had that accident on South Main, I flew that. But we did have a missing person of interest over by the hospital, and it was humorous. The person was off in the woods. I won't mention any names, and in between us and the hospital, and I was commenting to the officer on the scene. It's like, most likely this person is going to come, walking out of the woods. So we're flying the drone and we're talking to the guy, and it's, I guess, the reason, he was running because he thought the town was trying to find him with a drone. So they called the drone in, which is but anyways, so I'm flying the drone and it's the middle of summer, so I couldn't see anything in the woods, but I'm flying the drone anyways, doing my part. And then I look down and I see a kid walking out of the woods, and I tell the officer, is that the person right there? And sure enough, it was. So the person came wandering out of the woods, and there was no drama. He just went in the car, and that was the end of it. But I take full credit, because I said the drone drove him out and I found him. So that's a fine for me.
Yeah, it's like sheep herding or something.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Wow.
And there was one I got called in, but nothing happened with it yet. So not a lot, no, because I work a lot with the police and the fire department, but they are very, and rightfully so, very policy driven. So they just don't want someone showing up willy-nilly, because there's all kinds of rules of evidence that come in. So what they usually do, they call me in for very specific reasons and a very limited kind of action. So.
Great, thank you. Peter?
So first of all, thank you for a comprehensive and logically structured presentation. On the operational side, fabulous stuff that makes it a lot easier to do a host of tasks that fall under the heading of management, I think. But let me go to another place, Rich, and I'm not being critical here. I understand you're on the operational side, not the policy side. But all of us with an interest in the life of the town know that this community has gone through substantial changes in the course of the last 5,000 years since Native Americans settled along the Charles and elsewhere. And I think we're in one of those periods of rapid change right now. So given the information you've been able to gather and will be gathering in the future, what kind of role do you see GIS playing in transportation planning, development, particularly residential, but also commercial, integration with other communities in terms of shared services, and anything else you can imagine?
Most of the work that I'm doing now, I could see it as for, archival purposes. So you mentioned the Charles River, and that's been, as you know, a hot topic of late. So I very purposely, last year flew a very high resolution mission of the Charles River to kind of capture a 3D model of what the dam looks like, dam and the spillway looks like now in the bridge and that whole infrastructure, because in a very short time that's going to be changing. So it'd be nice to have, a three-dimensional representation of that space, for historical purposes. As far as like for planning resources, I haven't been used. Well, again, most of my stuff is to now has been for marketing purposes. So, the planning department says, hey, you got any shots of the East Natick Industrial Park? And it's like, yes, here, I can show this gorgeous kind of oblique image of the East Natick Industrial Park. So it kind of fills in, their presentations, with a picture. I can see opportunities for, habitat management, with the drone, again, using the drone to kind of capture the state of, fields and forests. And like I said, and then again, I work with other towns, on a one as a drone evangelist going around talking about drones. But then again, also, if they have a specific project they need help with the drone with, I'm happy to fly for them. And we've done we've done that in the past as well.
Rich, are you collaborating with the budding towns like Weston and Wayland and Framingham and Sherburne and so on? And how
I have relationships with all the GIS staff in those towns, except for I don't think Dover and Sherburne have one. I don't think, but now that Jeremy is there, so I'll probably have a tie into Sherburne. But all the surrounding towns, I know their GIS people there. But like I said, with Wellesley and Framingham, we work with them all the time. So I've flown projects for them as well.
So,
hey, Rich, why don't we just drop the screen sharing? I think it helps people's presentation.
Oh, sure.
I'll make sure to get these links to you.
or are you sharing data for planning purposes, open space, for instance?
Yes, if they request it, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, all the whole mantra of GIS is share everything, right? Everything that we have is public record. So everything we have, I freely give away to whoever wants it, and that's really my job, is to make it available to whoever wants it. So yes, so if Framingham or Wellesley calls and says, "Hey, do you get your zoning layer?" All yours, right?
Great. Let's move on. Brinley.
Hi, yeah, I'm curious about this from two aspects. One is on your YouTube channel and all of that. Do you have little, like little mini TED Talks where you show from start to finish, where you're actually talking and explaining what you're doing? You take the drone, you show the pulling out of its box and putting it together and all of that kind of stuff. And have you? My second interest is education. Have you done anything with the high school, like on career day? Because this really takes mapping to a wicked cool level, so that it's wicked. It's even cooler than those of us who are map nerds. Like, I have a whole bag of maps. I'm a map nerd for sure. But this takes it to a whole different level. And have you chatted with the schools and talked about career possibilities, and even just on the computer side of it, like just even not even the flying side of it, but just to do what you do, just for the pulling it all together with the software and doing that part, and opportunities with that?
Yeah, Yes, we have reached out. So that TED Talk-esh idea, that's fantastic. I hadn't thought about that, but doing a little how-to. So look for that soon, maybe on the YouTube channel. Said this presentation here, I got a couple different versions of it. So there's a class that I used to run before the pandemic up at Salem State with a former professor of mine. That was kind of a hands-on workshop. I've had informal talks with the school about doing this. Nothing's come of it yet. There was something a bit more concrete before the pandemic where we were going to build a 3-dimensional model of downtown, and actually and the high school was going to print it, right? And they're going to build a 2-scale 3D model of the town. And that was so cool. But then the pandemic hit and then people left, and well, that's that died on the vine. But
Boy,
it's
that would
all
be
the
fun.
rage right now in GIS is, they call it, digital twin, right? Make a digital twin of your infrastructures, but essentially it's just a 3D model.
That's exciting.
That's cool.
Cindy?
Yes. So I'm another map nerd. I have now 3 questions. It started with 1. As people are asking. So when you say 3D images of Natick Dam, South Natick, what do you mean by that?
So the way the drone processes imagery, it basically compares, one image to the other, and it finds edges and it matches those edges together. And in that process, it creates this 3-dimensional point cloud. So, think of an XYZ space.
Yeah.
And there's all these points that have attributes associated with them. And we're talking millions of points, right? So it's not LiDAR. The colloquial term is called FODAR, because it's not using, laser beams to measure image. It's comparing image structures to each other. So when the product is done, you basically have a 3-dimensional model of whatever you're flying. So you can rotate through it in real space. Actually on that, the cloud GIS site, there's actually a couple of 3D models in there.
Okay.
One of them's of the dam, another one's of the train station downtown.
And that was actually my second question, is to explain more about that cloud-based GIS system.
Yeah, so in a traditional sense, the GIS there's a local server on site, and there's clients, and you work between the two. So earlier this year, we partnered with a company called Rock I think they're out of South Carolina. And basically our entire infrastructure, computer-wise, has been moved to the cloud. So our processing computers are in the cloud, all the data are in the cloud, all the applications are in the cloud. And so now you can get access to all of Natick GIS as we roll it out on the cloud, online. You don't have to be on a town server, and that can be controlled by passwords and user access and groups and stuff like that. So it's the future. So we launched in June. I think that site went live. So we're still very much a work in progress of pushing applications out through that cloud interface. So that's the nice thing. Sorry, go ahead.
That's for staff.
No, that's for everybody.
That's for everyone.
Everybody.
Okay.
Yep. And we can lock down certain sites and just put out sensitive information if police wanted to put some stuff out there, or if we wanted to do water infrastructure, but otherwise it's all available to the public.
So but it's different than when I go to the Natick GIS website
Correct. Yeah. The Map Geo site, right? That's hosted by Applied Geographics or whatever their name is now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. And I like that because it gets all my eggs out of one basket. So and that's a very specific kind of assessor-based property record information. And they do such a great job that I can't possibly create anything that would compete with what MapGeo
because
does.
It's parcel based. That system is parcel based. Okay.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
And that ties into the assessor's database. So when you pull in a butters list from there, they can get it certified. You're looking at their live data.
Got it.
And that's legal, right? So that's the official assessor's database. So that gets updated once a year. The property lines on July 1 to January 1, whoever it is.
Okay. Okay. And then the last question is that you talked about the inspectional camera paid for by the police. And what's the difference between the inspectional camera in terms of its capability and the regular camera that you have?
Yeah. So So the regular camera it's a bigger pixel array, so it's it's a true 4K camera. So it's a 3000 by 2000 pixels. So it just takes a really nice picture, and it has much better color fidelity. The inspection camera is kind of old school 1080p, but it has a 30x optical zoom. So that's the real power of that one. That you can zoom in. So it's not a digital zoom; it's an optic. So you can get very tight to things.
Is that what, when you were showing us the pictures of Boston, was that
Correct?
That's the
Yes.
optical zoom.
Correct.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Sarah?
So I just, I guess, again, an observation and a comment or whatever. Just to see the integrated use not only of the drone, but also all the software that goes with it and the processing power and the linkages between, like you mentioned, the town's thing you get when you go on the assessor's database. From there they have you tied into the property card, and you can look up the book and page and figure out, go to the registry of deeds site and figure out who bought it before. And I spent my career in the hazardous waste site cleanup business, and when we would start working on a site, we'd have to look up all the history of the site. We'd have to go to the town hall and go to every office individually. And if I wanted to know how big an area was, I had to get out the planimeter, which was this cool little, just an actual little handheld machine that you trace an area and it would figure out for you how big it is. And all this just blows my mind how much this has made the world easier for people like me. And the other comment I wanted to make was on the history, or I mean on what do you see in the future? And I think it's entirely likely that uses for this data, 17 years or however far now off in the future, people are going to come up with new stuff that we haven't even thought of. And, I hearken back to, again, my history work that I used to do. There were these fire insurance companies used to make maps because they were concerned about what might burn down or blow up. Well, when you're in the hazardous waste site business, stuff that might burn down or blow up also might contaminate your property. And they were fantastic resources that were entirely, I think, unforeseen by the creators of those maps. So,
Correct.
I think who knows what people are going to do with it, but it's super cool.
Funny that. So Sanborn Maps, those fire maps, they're the company that bought Applied Geographics, which is so Sanborn's still in there, and we still those old fire maps are awesome. I love
my
they're all free
company
online
at
now.
one point. There was a guy within the company who was pushing hard to buy Sanborn. Upper management said, no, we're not spending the money, and I think it was a big mistake, but be that as it may, we had a chance to buy them and we didn't. So.
Cool. Pat?
Yes, Rich, I was going to say big fan of your work, and among other things, one of the things that I think is done in your photos online and so forth on Facebook, it kind of interestingly brought our community together visually, so people can really get a grasp of how beautiful and fragile our town is. And in terms of what it has environmentally and then all the other assets. I'm more of a fan of the idea that one of the things that we have to figure out is most important is how are we going to live on this earth? And your visual mapping of Natick gives us a real good idea of how we might improve the way we do live on the earth. I call us kind of the hard and heavy species, and we build all these horrible, impenetrable structures, unlike lots of other species and creatures who can learn to live on the land without polluting it and destroying it. But your work integrating the land and the water and our civilized structures are human-made things. It's just fascinating to me. I hope Natick will soon learn to appreciate how you really brought us together and take a look at what we have.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really eloquent and nice way of saying that, Pat. It kind of falls along from Sarah's comment that you can develop a technology or a process for one purpose, and it ends up giving you benefits that you just didn't anticipate at all. Rich, I want to, for a one-person department, it is astounding the services that you bring not only to the town but to the whole community. So I want to thank you again for joining us. This has been fantastic, and I'm really glad that Martin has recorded it, as I think this one will get a bunch of viewing, and I will. If you do get a chance to send me the presentation, I'll make sure that I follow up with the links so that people have that. So, what's that? No, she was clapping.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
All right, well,
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very much.
I appreciate
And,
it, and I am.
yeah.
I'm very grateful to the town of Natick. I have the best job on the planet. I really do.
Yeah.
The nice thing about being a one-person department, I kind of get to pick and choose my projects and when I go out and fly. So I'm just happy. I'm very happy that it's being well received. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm not sure yet what our topic will be next Monday, but stay tuned. That's all I can say.
Just one last quick question. Rich, do you sit in the town hall or do you sit down at the DPW area?
We're at DPW.
Okay, thanks.
All right.